What is mindset? Our mindset is based on what we believe, and anything we believe in, we put into motion. I have spent my life putting the mindset of perseverance into motion, and now I am here today to share my journey along with others whose mindsets have changed the course of their lives. Hi, I'm Mindset Coach Lorraine Lindsey, and I believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. So are you ready? Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Mindsetters, where we believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. I am your host, Coach Lorraine Lindsey. I am a certified life coach, a peak performance coach, and a mindset coach. I am back again here today to talk about a great topic we spoke about last week on red flags. Let me reintroduce my guest. We have Mr. Rodney Allgood, reoccurring guest, a good friend of mine. Thank you, Rodney, for coming back to do this part 2. And then, of course, we have the beautiful Dr. Ray Wells, as she's back to grace us with her presence and her wisdom as well. So before we get into the show, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button. We love to hear from you. We are appreciating all the love and support we've been getting. Don't forget to send us your comments and let us know what topics you want to hear from us. We love to hear all those things. So without further ado, we're getting right into it. We want to jam pack all of this, red flags. And last week we talked about what are some red flags. We kind of went into some details about that. And today we're going to talk about part 2 as to why we ignore red flags and some bullet points on that. And I think, we've lived long enough. We've been in relationships. I can say definitely I've been down that road where I've ignored some red flags. So the why. Why do we ignore red flags? So first bullet point is infatuation. The infatuation phase. Now, I personally can tell you all a personal time in my life. This is years ago when I met, many moons ago when I met my ex-husband. I talk about him quite frequently on the show because he was quite the life lesson for me, you know. But when I met him, I just remember I was with a bunch of girls on a cruise, okay? And there he was across the room. And my girlfriend's like, she's a little cute Colombian girl from Miami. She's, bro, check out that guy from across the room. And I look and I was just completely and utterly smitten by this person. At that time in my life, I thought he was the most beautiful man I'd ever laid eyes on. And he was Italian, he was foreign, he didn't even speak English, but there was something really mesmerizing and different about that and unique. And so I became very, very infatuated with the idea of who he was. And I used that kind of a infatuation to create this fairy tale in my mind of what this man was going to be, because aesthetically and the whirlwind that it was, I needed him to kind of fit a mold. I wanted that man to be my husband. And so the red flags came very quickly. And because I was so smitten, so infatuated, I completely and utterly ignored those red flags. So do you guys kind of want to tap into that?
Ooh, infatuation. I think a lot of times, especially for some of us women, a lot of us live in that fairy tale mindset. We have that fairy tale mindset. We're so smitten by a guy, by his looks, his charm. I know for me, I'm just speaking from my own experiences with my ex-husband. He was very attentive to all of my needs. He was the perfect boyfriend, the perfect fiance. Anything that I needed, he was like Johnny on the spot. And so there were a lot of red flags that I ignored or that I would make excuses for because I'm like, oh, he loves me. He buys me flowers. He takes me out to dinner, and anything I need, it's right there. But this, the other nuances that came along with that, I would dismiss because of the things he did for me.
I can totally relate to that. You're going to say something, Rodney?
Well, a lot of times there's something that gets fulfilled so much, like water. It's like a tall drink of water when you're thirsty, right? So something that has been empty in you is getting fulfilled so much that you ignore red flags. And infatuation is a stronger feeling than love.
Really?
It's a bigger rush than love. So it's really easy to ignore red flags when you're feeling that rush. A lot of times the red flags has to do with that person's issues that have not to do with you. It's them, and it will affect you in time as you get to know the person,
Right.
right? But as long as, like Ray said, he was serving her needs, right? So he was being very good to her, but in time, whatever issues a person has becomes your issues too,
And
right?
that's exact, and it's interesting because exactly what you said, even for myself, having a relationship where there are some great things, right? You can get very focused on that. And it's not to take away from the great things, but sometimes, even in abusive relationships, you can have the person be dynamically different from one spectrum to another, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? They're doing all of these wonderful, sweet things on this side. But then there's these other things that are happening. And like you said, you're so kind of immersed into the great things that you talk yourself out of it. You rationalize the things that are bad, just to, well, it's not that bad, or at least they
Mhm.
do this for me, or, that kind of thing. Or sometimes they use that as a golden carrot they dangle over your head.
Right, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what about this one? What about moving too quickly?
Ooh.
You move too quick, right? And I don't know why this is particularly now, and I see it amongst a lot of my girlfriends as we're all in our 40s,
Mhm.
and we're acting like the clock is running out, and so we meet people and we get infatuated very quickly. And there's almost sometimes a desperation in that, and then we move really, really quick. We just everything from moving in to sex, even, and as though if we don't move on this right away. I know sometimes women get married super fast, and all of the red flags get completely ignored because I just got to have this. I got to have it now. What do y'all have to say about that? What do you think about that?
I think you don't know someone well enough. When you move too fast, the cart is in front of the horse, and the friendship hasn't been built, and the understanding and the expectation, all of it is off because you move too fast. Friendship is the meat of any kind of relationship. Right? When you're really friends with somebody, you understand that person. If you think of your best friends, your best female friends, you understand them. We
Right,
all have, growing up, I remember a couple of my best friends, they annoyed everybody else but me because I knew them.
right,
Like I really knew who they were. And I was always, don't mind. He's really a nice guy under that, right? I understood who that person was. And in relationships, a lot of times we move so fast and then we want them to be what we want them to be
right.
instead of
Mhm.
who they really are.
Expectations versus
hmm
standards.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because you went so deep so quickly. Now you're trying to catch up all the stuff you missed.
Why do you think? Like, why do you think that people do that? Why do they move so
mm.
quickly into things?
I think at our age in the 40s, just speaking generally, a lot of times it has to do with insecurity. You're scared that you're going to be by yourself. You're running out of time, as you stated. And so we don't stop, you know what I'm saying, to build that friendship that is the foundation of a relationship. We're just like so infatuated with the idea of being in a relationship and this person wants to be with us that we're like, oh, if I don't act now, then I'm going to lose this person, instead of taking out time to say, does this person really meet up to my expectations, to the standards that I've set for myself in a relationship? We just jump in too soon, and before you know it,
Yeah.
you're in a little deep,
Mhm.
and then you have
And
other
here's the thing
problems.
too with moving too quickly, and when we speak in terms of red flags, sometimes when people are moving too quick, they're well, this person wants me to be close to them, or they want me to move in right away, or look, they want to introduce me to the family. Like last week when we were talking about you had your girlfriend come into town, and all of a sudden this person wanted you around their family. And sometimes we're thinking it's endearing and something really sweet, but
Hmm.
the red flag could be it's a form of control. It's like if we're gonna do this and try to do this potentially for forever, what's the rush? And if we're not careful, because we can mistake control and possessiveness with some love or some, like desire that this person has for you, and you move too fast on that, and before you know it, you feel like you're trapped,
Mm.
you know?
It's because infatuation is exciting. To rush.
And it goes
It
into that.
is.
It ties into that. You move quickly a lot, and often you do that when you're in the infatuation
Mhm.
stage.
That is
Mhm.
true.
So what about the next one? The next one is wishful thinking. So again, we're talking about why we ignore red flags, right? And I've seen this, I've done this, where there is an obvious red flag. Let's say somebody is a cheater, and you don't know, but you like your
Mhm.
insides know, and you just want to give the person the benefit of the doubt.
Mm.
You want to believe that it's just in your head. I'm just paranoid. It's in my mind. They're looking at you. They're telling you, "Are you crazy? What do you mean?" They have the excuses. Then they do the gaslighting thing, and in your mind, you're like, "No, they wouldn't do that to me. Not to me. We're good." And you start to make all the excuses. And you have this wishful thinking, and so I'm going to ask, why do you think we do that?
Wishful thinking. You know where I think wishful thinking is even more pertinent, and I think this happens way more for women than men, is when women see potential in a man.
Oh, yes, that's so true.
Wishful thinking, right? So you're the one that's going to turn this rock into a diamond. And a lot of times it's wishful thinking because you believe in somebody more than they believe in themselves,
Mm.
Right.
right? So that
Mm,
for me, I see that
Mhm.
happen a lot. Wishful thinking of what this man could be.
that's spot on. That's exactly right. That is so spot on, and you are exactly right that um, I always get in trouble because I'm always speaking for the women. When I post things, I always get the men that just like, yeah, go at me. But I can only speak on behalf of women, and the reality is that we do that. We invest more into the potential than we do into the reality, and it's that expectation versus the standard. My standard is the level in which I will allow in my life, right? Because it's how I show up. But often, my standards here, usually the expectations higher than I hold for my own regard.
Mhm.
And then in your mind, you're going to fix that person, right? You're like, I can see it in them. I can see they're going to be a great father, right? Even though they're telling you they don't want no kids. I can see they're going to be a great husband, even though they're telling you they're never going to get married. Even though he's cheating, or let's say you're with a man that you, and I have no women that will date married men, and they think they're going to
Hmm.
love him out of that wife situation and be a better woman. Or they don't even have to be married. They have a girlfriend, or they see the man's treating that woman well, and then they want to like be that side piece that wants up the
Right.
woman.
Or it could be even in
I don't know. I'm
business, right?
rambling. I'm just going off
There's
on
a
a
lot of
tangent.
people that have ideas for business over and over and over again, and their track record is zero. Like they haven't succeeded at anything, right?
Hmm.
And as a woman, they might bleed you dry because they've been doing this forever, right? It's different when somebody is recovering, maybe they have a track record of success. A red flag could be that this person has been doing this for 20 years
Mm.
and nothing's ever fruited.
Right.
That's a red flag.
Well, Maya
Yeah.
Angelou says it best. She says, when someone shows you who they are,
Mm-hmm.
believe them.
Mm-hmm.
And we get so caught up sometimes in falling in love with potential.
Right.
Mhm. We
And we
do.
get so, what's the word I'm looking for? We get so fixated on fixing
Mm-hmm.
that we end up, I've said this before, and this is actually what happened in my relationship, is that at the end, no matter what I went through with the man, I felt betrayed. I felt hurt. I felt abused at times. But at the end, I'm like, the biggest betrayal was the one I did to myself because I lied to me about who he was.
Oh yeah.
The greatest betrayal was my own, and that was a hard pill for me to swallow because I didn't want to see who he was showing me he
Mm-hmm.
was. I was going to force that square peg into that round hole. You were going to say something?
I mean, I certainly identify. I think a lot of times, potential can be dressed up so well. You see, a man or a woman, and they seem like they have everything together. They have a great career. They have a great home and cars, and they dress nice and they carry themselves well. But then they're not emotionally available to you, and we try to a lot of
That's
times
a good one.
make that, person, trying to be our best selves, thinking that, we're worthy of someone who has, who can compliment us in that fashion, and then, but emotionally they're just not vested. And
That's a good point what you said when you said emotionally unavailable. I've seen that so much where a man will come to a woman, and it goes both ways, and he'll be there for the intimacy, right? And in her mind, if I just do this long enough, if I kind of,
Mhm.
give into this, then he's going to fall in love and we're going to fall in love. And there's just like, and it's just not going to happen. What are you thinking over there, Rodney?
No, I was just thinking of a situation that I got into when I first got divorced, and I'm proud of myself because I responded to the red flag.
Mm.
Oh, how
Right.
so? What was the red flag and how did you respond to it?
Well, in my marriage, sometimes disappointment or anger was displayed in slamming things. Like she would slam cabinets and stuff like that. It unnerves me. And I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody, but that's just something that was in my life. But that's a red flag for me. Somebody who shows anger in that way, I'm just done. I have no tolerance for that
Mm-hmm.
because there are people in this world that don't do that, and I'd rather be with them. Right.
Right.
So I dated this girl briefly, and she was upset at something. I think I was on a business call. I was at her house, and she was upset how long my call was because she wanted my attention. And I heard the screams, bam.
You're like, uh-oh,
And that was it.
this is familiar.
That was it.
I'm
That was it.
out.
I'm out. None.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's a boundary of mine. Right. So
Mhm.
a lot of times we ignore things like that. You have to know what matters to you. Now, I'm not saying she was wrong for doing that. It just doesn't work for me.
Right.
Mhm.
We were talking last week. We had mentioned that Netflix Tinder swindler, and and I've been seeing this a lot lately with some friends where they're with in relationships where we talk about the red flags and the wishful thinking and whatnot, where the person just really fabricates their lives to them. They tell them these stories or they manipulate them into, with money. Let me, I've got this, I'm this man with all this money, but I need to borrow this money. And the next thing you know, you're giving out the money and you never see the money again. He's got these excuses as an example, or, I'm on a plane here. I've got to go do this, but really he has another family and another life
Mhm.
going on in the background. And it always is interesting to me because at some point the red flag is so much in your face, but and this is going to go into the next one. We don't like to admit that we're wrong. And this is a reason why we end up ignoring those red flags. It's almost like you tell all your friends how great this person
Mhm.
is. You bring him around your family. He's hanging out. Everyone's charmed by the person. Everyone thinks he's so amazing. And then bam, you find out that it was all a lie. It was all a facade. And you can't bring it to yourself to say, I don't know how to tell my friends. I don't know. Especially you bring to the guy, maybe he's got excuses or whatever. I don't know. I'm rambling. But when we don't like to admit that we're wrong, we sometimes will stay in a situation, especially when people are telling you, when they're seeing the red flags first and they're coming to you and they're like, you need to be careful. Something doesn't seem right here. And you vouch and you go to battle for that person and then it blows up in your face. Sometimes you stick around quietly knowing these things are happening just because you don't want to admit that you're wrong.
I think that happens more today because of social media. Right? Sometimes people will be in a relationship for like a week and just blast it all over social media and
Right.
change their status, right? And everybody, I'm so happy for you. You deserve it. Oh, he looks so great or she looks so great. Or, 2 weeks later is not what you thought. And you put the whole thing on Front Street,
Right.
right? That
Mhm.
happens a lot, right? Where now it's embarrassing to take these things off. So that's part of things going too fast.
Yeah,
Mhm.
totally.
Right, where you
Absolutely.
just put it out there so fast, and you didn't really know the person. So, I think people have to slow their roll a little bit.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, do you want to touch on that at all?
I would just say, take your time to get to know a person. Please don't put any pictures up on social media because that isn't, even when you're married sometimes, people notice when pictures start coming down.
Listen, I am so notorious, okay? This time, even though it's been the same relationship on and off again forever and a day, and hopefully this will be the on, I'm just very, I'm in the background because I get emotional and I'm very open. I'm very transparent because of me doing the podcast and coaching and things like that. I always like to keep it real. And I don't like to paint a picture that I have this perfect life. So when I go through it, sometimes they know, but then I'm like, here, and then I'm back again. They're like, "Oh, she's back again." we're done. We're over this soap opera. So yeah, it's and I've even gone through that, even with the relationship that I'm currently in. Not with it being on again, off again, and feeling like I don't want to admit that I was wrong or not. You get embarrassed and stuff like that. So I totally get it. So another red flag, or why we ignore red flags, is because we just don't trust ourselves. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and this one's a hard one because I think for a lot of people out there, they have really been through a lot in their life. They've had a traumatic life. Maybe their upbringing was, incredibly sad. Maybe they didn't have both parents, or maybe there was abuse, or, it goes on and on. And so they didn't really learn love in a way that was healthy, in a way that could be demonstrated properly. So the moment they get somebody in their lives that gives them just something, just a little something nice, something sweet, something like, you see me, you want me, it breaks my heart. But a lot of people do that. And so they don't trust themselves, or they're afraid, and that's another bullet that we're going to get into. But just not saying to yourself, I know something is wrong here, and I'm not trusting myself enough to believe it. And that's really heartbreaking because a lot of people do that to themselves.
Well, it has a lot to do with self-value.
Absolutely.
I was going to say self-love.
Yeah, self-love and
absolutely.
self-value, right? If you don't love yourself, you're always searching for something outside yourself.
Right.
And you're very susceptible and vulnerable to anybody who shows you the right kind of attention. And I've seen a lot of people, men and women, if somebody is persistent enough, they just break down at some point because it feels like this person must really like me. And so you ignore the red flags, the very things that was keeping you from opening up to it. You finally give in and say, okay, let's just give it a shot, right?
Right.
And it's a lot of times because of your lack of self-love and self-acceptance that you need.
And it can be so catastrophic in your life when you give in. And you're like, especially when, like you said, you don't understand your own worth and your own value and your self-love, and you're getting that value in your mind, that perceived value from somebody else. It could be incredibly crushing, and it can cause people to be stuck. They could completely shut down and close their heart off because of their own lack of self-love and self-worth. You were going to touch on that.
I was just going to say, we have to accept accountability for ourselves when it comes to self-love. At some point, after going through cycles of relationships, you have to take, a deep look at self, have some reflection, and say, why do I keep allowing myself to go through this? Why do I keep choosing these type of people in my inner circle? Why am I allowing myself to be around someone who is not giving me what I need? And a lot of times it's just, you got to spend time and know yourself and hold yourself accountable, for some of these relationships. I know I hold myself accountable for every relationship. It has been a learning lesson. And if it's not a lesson, then it's a problem.
Right.
You should look at every relationship you've ever encountered and say, okay, what did I do wrong? How can I fix this so the next time it will be better? Why do I allow people to treat me this way? And, listen to motivational speeches, journal, whatever your spiritual journey is, connect with that. Surround yourself by a supportive group of people who lift you up and make you feel, special. But you have to love yourself. You have to put yourself first.
And I'm going to tap a little bit on what you said when you said asking yourself, what did I do wrong? It is hard to ask that question when the person that you see as the perpetrator, if you will, has done so much wrong to you and you've poured yourself into them. It's hard to look at yourself and say, well, what did I do wrong here?
Mm-hmm.
and to for me, because I kind of want to like, because for some people they're like, I didn't do anything wrong. I was there. I was a support. I was everything for this person, and they still broke me down. So no, you didn't do anything wrong per se to them. The wrong was what you did to
To yourself.
yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and to see it that
Absolutely.
way, not to beat yourself up, not to make yourself feel horrible, but to say, who was I when I showed up?
Mm-hmm.
What did I believe about myself? What did I think and feel about myself? How do I honor myself? Can I look at myself in the mirror and love me? If you can't say yes, then that's where you have to start. So that way, and listen, for me, there was a time in my life where I did not value myself. And I didn't even realize that I wasn't valuing myself. I was just, marching to the beat of life, not realizing I wasn't tapping in. I wasn't self aware until I got into a really ugly relationship where that person was belittling and broke me down and made me feel
Mm-hmm.
very small. And at some point, I'll never forget, I was so broken. Okay. I was so broken. And I literally go to the store and I'm in the middle of the store and I start to have a panic attack because I'm looking around and I realize I don't even know where I'm at. So I'm like literally looking and I finally see, and I'm like, okay, I'm in Walmart. And I bolt out of that store and I get to the parking lot and I realize I don't even know where my car is. So when I finally find my car, I get in the car and I just wept. And I thought to myself, wow, I am so broken that I'm literally living my life on autopilot. I got in this car and drove because I am so numb and so out of touch. And it
Mm-hmm.
was that moment for me that I was like, who is she? And I don't want to be here anymore because I cannot believe I'm in this space where I'm that broken in my life that certain things I made acceptable. I had to lose Lorraine and learn a new Lorraine in order for me to get out of that relationship and to raise my standard and love myself. And that took some work and it was painful because in that moment I realized he's doing these things to me because I taught him how to treat me. And I
Absolutely.
have to be responsible in that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it takes situations like that, unfortunately, sometimes for us to come to ourselves, right? But that's part of growing and understanding, what you deserve and what you need in
Right.
life, and it gives you the strength and the power to walk away from those situations. And we can't beat ourselves up on how long we stayed. You just got to really focus on getting out of a situation and making sure that you treat yourself better, making sure that others honor and respect you as well.
Absolutely. 100%. There was something I didn't put on the bullet point, but I do want to say one little thing about kind of goes together with not trusting yourselves is that fear of being alone. And I think sometimes when we talked about this
Mm-hmm.
last week, um, sometimes we ignore red flags because we're so afraid of being alone that we settle and we say, it'll get better. The person will change because, a lot of times when you're dealing with red flag situations, there's times when the situation's confronted. And then usually if the person doesn't want to exit, they'll promise you the sun and the moon and the stars and things will be better. And and in your heart, at first maybe you'll say, yeah, maybe they'll change. They say first time, shame on you. Second time, shame on me.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, and the person's a repeat offender and you'd start to rationalize because you don't want to be alone, it's like, I don't know. It's a sad thing for me because I know a lot of people do it, and it makes me sad to think that people will put up with abuse and being mistreated for the sake of not being alone.
I
When
think
we're really not alone, right?
that's true. Well, it also go to societal standards that being single's a crime, like it's a curse. And so, society has placed that type of mindset on a lot of people that if you're single, something's wrong with you, no one wants you. And so a lot of people kind of feel kind of pushed into those type of relational dynamics.
I think one other thing I wanted to bring up is sometimes when two people are looking for something that's kind of self-serving, then both of you ignore red flags. Like a guy might be after a woman just because of how she physically looks,
Mm.
and he's after sex, right? And not that he's just after sex, he's just ignoring red flags because he finds this person physically attractive.
Mhm.
And he's
Absolutely.
not looking beyond that.
Mm.
And then hopes she'll turn into the kind of woman that he wants. And that's not what she ever showed you, right? But you were just focused on this one thing. And on the other side, it happens too. And somebody's just looking for, a woman might be looking to fulfill something within her that's empty from a man. And it's not, they're just going like this. They're
Right.
missing each other.
Right.
And both feel used or both feel, not completed. Both feel empty at the end of the day because they weren't clear about themselves.
Right.
We weren't clear about who they are, looking for that kind of vibrational match of a person that's a true match. A lot of times we just focus on something we want.
Right.
And
That
that
is
person
true.
has that something,
It's the
but
void
there's so
fillers.
much more.
Mhm.
Right.
There's so much more to a person.
That's so true. It's about filling the void. And yeah, and I think that's a big trap for a lot of us, right? And it kind of goes back to the whole trusting yourself and loving yourself and pouring into yourself. If there's a void that you're trying to get fulfilled from somebody else, that's where you need to start for
Mhm.
yourself. So this was a quick one. We only had 30 minutes to do the show today and we're wrapping up. But I always like to do like a little round robin to kind of give a conclusion to the people that are out there listening. What would you say, Dr. Ray, Dr. Wells, about red flags, why we ignore them, and give a suggestion to some people out there that are going through some of the things we talked about today?
Well, we, basically discussed, why we ignore the red flags. But if anything, I would say we have to be true to our own selves, that you have to hold yourself accountable to a higher standard and understand that being single is not a bad thing. It's okay to be by yourself, to get to know yourself until you find that, till you find that perfect mate for you. But, we have to stop settling and trust ourselves enough and love ourselves enough so that we can trust ourselves.
Beautiful. That's so beautifully said. What about you, Rodney?
A relationship should be about sharing, not just looking at what you can attain from somebody.
Yep.
You want to share. When you find someone compatible, you want to share who you are, and you want who they are to be shared with you. It's about sharing. So many people are about attaining. What can I get from that person? What place in me, what void can that person fill in me? We got to take care of ourselves,
Right.
Mhm.
right? So a good relationship is when there's overflow. You want 2 full cups instead of pouring half a cup in one's empty, where it just goes back and forth. Neither person's going to be happy if you don't come full. So focus on yourself and then understand what it is you want to share,
Right.
not attain.
And I'm going to
Mm.
piggyback onto that a little bit and say, check in with your own red flags, right? What is it that you're telling yourself about yourself, that you're not enough, that you don't belong, that I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life? Check in with the red flags that you're telling yourself so you can stop ignoring the red flags that everybody is giving to you. Don't let them hand you the flag. Deal with your own,
Mhm.
And it goes into exactly what both of you are saying. Relationships should be give and give,
Mhm.
right? What you have, what I have, and we're just here to exchange. You should never feel depleted in relationships or that you have to question your self-value or ignore
Mhm.
being mistreated. It's unacceptable. That should be unacceptable for your life.
And that I hang out with you because I like you.
I know, ain't that the truth? I say I can love people all day long. That's my abundance, but I need to be with someone that I like.
Right.
That's right.
That's kind of
It
important.
makes a difference.
Yeah. So thank you. I know this was a short one, but this was the part 2. We didn't have a chance to get to it last week, so we wanted to kind of make sure we put some little nuggets out there. Thank you again for watching. If you like our content, again, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the thumbs up. And until next time, ciao.